If there is a message for us today, I believe it is to learn to live from our heart in love. These short lessons, hopefully, will help to inspire you to live with purpose, love passionately, and inspire others. We are the change agent our world needs. I'm Helen Taves. Step into the river today with me to explore the mysteries of God. They are not hidden from us, but for us to discover. It's been an interesting week. Oh, excuse me, I'm trying to get things organized here. It's been an interesting week in that I had a call from somebody once more telling me that her friends are telling her not to watch because I teach New Age. And you know what? I think that's actually great. I really do. Because clearly the messages are not what's in play in mainstream religion, and somebody's listening and somebody has an opinion. And I'm not the expert or the final saying anything. So if we're learning anything, that is what we're learning. And that is what the fact is, we have more to learn. So in our What If Chronicles challenges, one of them was about don't let anybody shut down your voice. If you have an opinion or a truth, it's okay to share it. Your voice matters, even if it differs from anybody's. Your voice matters. And that's really what we want to encourage. When I was talking to Father about putting a lesson together tonight, I really felt prompted to share this lesson. I've shared it in part in the What If Chronicles and in other lessons. I just felt I'd like to put it together because this lesson is probably the most important one that I have learned in my entire life. And my apologies to those who have heard components of this, because I've shared the message in different contexts. And I had language to it for years. I had the cliches down pat. I knew what it was, what I thought, but then I went through a process within myself until I came through a testing. And I realized that till you come through the testing, it's not your testimony. And I know that's a cliche, right? But it's also a true story. So I'm putting this together tonight to share for whoever wants to listen in at some time. It was when I learned to live in unconditional love, or actually translocated my ego to live from my that I would live from my sacred self, not my ego. So briefly, my ego became a teacher. And when I recognized how living from my ego in a certain situation was truly not my friend. So when I refer to the ego, it's used of self, right? Or the natural man. We're familiar with the term. I'm also using the term in conjunction with our soul. That's what's resident in our body and have a great effect to its well-being. When using the term ego, it refers to the times where the expression from our mind, our will, emotions, like our soul realm, identifies with our present three-dimension body life. When our soul connection is focused on that part of our life, the ego circumstances will align with a very low frequency. I'm going to actually share on it's an amazing study that I've been in for a while now on the frequencies of our body and how we can go from the very lowest frequency, and it's almost a dangerous one, which is shame, to enlightenment. We're going to deal with that. But right now, just to understand that living from our ego is a very, very low frequency, simply because the ego and the spirit are those two unseen energy forces within us that are often at odds with each other. without even knowing it. And when we talk about these two energies, we give them names, and we have a certain amount of understanding because they both influence our being. However, when we take a closer look at them, we'll see that they're not at all compatible, nor are they interchangeable. So when we live from the sense of self, we live from the ego. Wayne Dyer defines the term ego beautifully. He calls it that it's a place of living from, or that it's living from a place of edging God out, ego, E-G-O, edging God's out. And that's exactly what we do when we live in our own thinking rather than from our spirit or our sacred self. When we separate ourselves from our sacred self or the spirit life in God, we edge God out if we live from our ego. We actually don't do it intentionally at first, but the stronger we get in our own self-centeredness, the less we give attention to our divine potential. Edging God out starts really, really in our early years. Small children, as they begin to express themselves, will share their reality from wonderful imaginations. I know we all have these stories. A little girl can have a tea party with no tea or cookies. In her play, she can taste and she can see her beautiful party complete with guests and with the sights and sounds of a party. She can even wear a crown and be a princess. A little boy can have a twig in his hand and he can single-handedly conquer the fire-breathing dragon. And so many young people share the testimony of having a special friend that they converse with, that they can describe in detail. They testified of seeing and hearing and conversing with people in their play. Even those closest, like our parents and friends, those who had our best interest at heart, actually kept us grounded and helped to shut down our intuition and our imaginations so that they would keep bringing us back to our three-dimensional living. They would say things like, your friend is only your imagination. No, you can't fly like Superman. You'll hurt yourself. Who says, right? Well, this will make you sick. Da, 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 da. You can go so dark with this. Why is it that many of our upbringings have taught us to live from our perceived reality in our three-dimension world and not from the true reality that we're now calling resurrection realities, as we understand now that everything is energy? We're doing a whole dynamic shift in our understanding, but the truth remains the same. Were we really uninformed, or were we afraid of things that we didn't understand? And I suspect it's a little of both, but also that we only knew what we were conditioned to from generations that have gone before us. The ego does not operate in honesty because the ego's frequency is like shifting sand, and it will agree with whatever makes it feel good for the time. There is not a true plumb line for ego's decisions. It's ego that cares about reputations. Think about it. We think about, how do people feel about me? And you can have 50, 100 people in a gathering, and do you know what? There'll be 50 to 100 different viewpoints about you if you want to worry about something. Your ego will keep you in the negative spin of self-worth if you let it. Our egos too are very fragile. They may talk tough, we may seem tough, but it takes very little at times to fracture them because they so care more about what others think that have a plumb line of their own to live in. If you live from your ego and define your values to success and you don't achieve what you think is the top prize, you will also create for yourself many reasons to feel down and even depressed. This too may allow many unhealthy emotions like doubt and fear to take over your thoughts. And these things that we are learning require our attention to construct. People living from their ego measure their life but what they're able to do themselves. They consider that depending on something or someone is a form of weakness. we know we are one. They continue to pursue external prowess, such as learning degrees, accumulating knowledge, and statement like it isn't what you know, but who you know is a very real ego boosting facet of their life. The ego often finds its value by bragging and boasting and exaggerating. And ego driven, we may have unreal expectations of ourselves and of others, so that they will judge their life or actions about everything they judge, and they will find it lacking. Life from ego will talk about others behind their back and put others under the microscope set to reveal imperfections. No subject is safe from their scrutiny, and it leads to personal comparisons, doubts, and so often confusion. These issues translate often into anger and fear that the ego continues to defend rather than release themselves from it. Even more negative emotions arise because they have to defend their own reputations and will continue to attack others. That creates separation rather than understanding the power of oneness. Author Helen Schumann, in The Course of Miracles, asks the reader, would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? She says, you will only accept whom you invite. I love that phrase. What you give your attention to expands, and it's become a very familiar phrase for us, hasn't it? It applies to just about everything in our lives. We're learning that our thoughts create our reality. Look around you. Like, this is a serious statement. Your thoughts create your reality. Everything in your life has been given life because of our choices. That's pretty heavy duty. But you know what? We're coming to grips with it. And just how our thoughts had created, our thoughts are recreating in places, and we are being the change agents if necessary. So have you ever looked at the word un? No, not the UN, the UN for United Nations. It's the prefix un typically means not or opposite of when it's added to a word. It often serves to negate the meaning of the word that it's attached to, okay? Like happy, unhappy, happy, not happy, certain, not certain, tidy, not tidy. Adding none generally changes the word to mean the opposite of what it originally did. Unchanged my life when in a quiet time with Father, I was challenged, and he said, I love you unconditionally. I thought I knew that. I would have told you, yeah, I knew that. But it was only when I went through what I'm going to share did I understand what was going to be a testing time. If anyone asked, I would have said that I understood unconditional love, and I may have been so bold as to say, I live in unconditional love. But boy, was I in for a surprise. My best teacher on this subject of intellectual love, that's actually what it could have been, of unconditional love, was a person close to me in the family. And I know I've shared this with some of you. We've come to a place in our relationship, total impasse, that I decided I could not participate in our relationship at all. And I personally shut off all communication with this person. This person's anger, personal attacks, complete lack of compassion or empathy were some of my excuses for not continuing contact. When I was thinking about this, I thought, should I give you examples? And I thought, no, I don't want to give examples, because I've taken conditions off, but they don't exist anymore for me. They were in the past. And the worst part of this was a very close family member. The situation had come to a place where not only myself, but almost all other family members made decisions independently of each other and literally blocked the relationship with this person as well. It was a tough time. I wasn't alone. We all had our stories. This didn't make it any better. This personal life experience has showed me how easily, when I live out of my ego, that I could edge God out. I could be the accuser, the judge, and executioner in a situation. People closest to me at this time applauded my decision, verifying, reinforcing, and endorsing me. It was continually telling me it was the best decision that I made to close this relationship down. I may have had many personal reasons to take the stand. They felt right for the time. But the solution was not what the psychology of the world would teach, but what I learned when I started letting go of my own intellectual analysis. My own ego's voice was loud and not very kind. Looking outward from my ego's ways helped me to stay in my own paradox and in pain. In it, I actually created a stronghold. My ego made sure that I saw the other person by standards in my standards in life. Like I would judge and sentence the person to my conditions. Conditions like, I'll talk to you when you're not so reactionary, when you calm down. I'll continue the relationship if you go for some help. When you recognize you're part of the problem, I'll speak to you. That was what I did. I also had help with this, listening to others like counselors and even experts in the field that are deemed clinical experts in behavior. How easily we label people. You can listen to the greatest minds and experts in the fields of human behavior, and what happens is a label is put on the problem. Oh, they're a narcissist, egomaniac, psychopathic behavior, passive aggressive, unresolved issues. You know what? I used to use terms like that as if I understood them. I am not a professional. How easily those terms got flipped out. And the solution I learned that number one is I'm still learning, and that number two, there is a spiritual solution, not a clinical one, that when we step we step up into our sacred self, to God's point of view, when we see things from that vantage point, we allow change. I'm actually slowly understanding that if I look for the spiritual solution, it brings about spiritual results, which are true change, measurable changes, miracle changes. The absolute pinnacle tipping point aha moment was when the words unconditional love, words we use of God so often, was highlighted to me. I love you unconditionally is what I heard. Oh my golly. Because of what I personally went through, I can share now without reservation, without hesitation, that it was unconditional love that became the key to unlocking prison doors that I had put myself in. It was the beginning of tearing down the stronghold. I began to examine me. I didn't go looking for demons or dark places. I simply looked at the term conditional. And Father was able to show me where I let ego have the strongest voice. I was shown the conditions that I had put up. I knew what they were, but I didn't realize they'd become walls of a stronghold that I created to protect myself. And those walls that I protected myself with became a prison. It's called a stronghold. And it kept me locked in. And when you're locked in, that's not protection. That's a jail. You see, conditions are a state of affairs that have to be, they have to exist or be brought about before something else is possible or permitted. And there are no conditions to God's love. If I could wrap something up in a box and give to everybody in the world, I'd want them to know that. There are no conditions. There is nothing you have to do to be better, to be anything to God loving you. I held up all my conditions in the light of the fact that God actually didn't have any. So why did I think it's okay to have conditions to my love for someone? When I looked at each condition that I'd put on the relationship, such as you need to get help, you need to stop being angry, and you're arguing, and you, when I took each situation that I had judged the Father, he was able then to begin the work on me. You see, when you judge another, it comes from a place inside of you that you're judging about yourself. And that's a tough one. I realized Father had no conditions on my relationship with him. He loved me in the best of times, and he loved me in the worst of times. I was not applauded or punished along the way. He never said, when you get healed of this, or when you overcome that, I'll love you. He was there, and he was love all the time. I took the time. I looked at my life, and I saw him there all the time. Not more or less love. He's absolutely love, and he's never turned his face from me. Any judgments that I had placed on anyone were the ones I had to address in myself. When I finally came to the point of understanding unconditional forgiveness, the walls of my stronghold started coming down like the walls of Jericho. My walls came down with really a quiet sound of knowing, a whisper, a frequency, not by force or coercion or bullying. Certainly no punishment or payment was required, no jail sentence even. Should have probably been one, but the walls came down God's way and in his timing. They came down when my heart attitude changed. The next lesson was that the sins that we judge so well actually don't exist. We have to give them form and function. We actually have to give sin form and function so that they can become what we need it to be. What if there's no such thing as sin? That was the challenge to myself. You know, I shared this story, and I don't remember when I shared it, but I'm going to share it again here. It was the time I broke a glass. I was standing and washing dishes in the sink, and I broke a glass. And I swore, oh, expletive, right? My first words were a cuss word for those who are not following this. Immediately, I said, Father, forgive me. After all, that's my conditioning. That's what I've been taught. It didn't bother me that the glass was broken. It bothered me that I swore. The next words I heard from Father were loud, really. You forgive yourself is what I heard. And all the scriptures came tumbling at me at that moment. I thought, how much more can he do? The sin of the world has been nailed to the cross, paid in full. Behold the Lamb of God. Nothing's been left out, et cetera, et cetera. They just sort of like a ticker tape in front of me. I looked down at my body as though it was a stranger, and I said, I forgive you. And at that very moment, I understood the There are no conditions to love. I am loved unconditionally. I need to love unconditionally, and that includes to love me, to love myself. I loved me at that moment enough to forgive me, my rotten swearing, and I laughed. I could laugh at me. I needed to receive the very thing that Christ had done, not just know about it. I forgave me, received his forgiveness. You know, there's a saying by Mark Twain, and it says, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that crushed it. And I realized I can love like Father because I am. I am that I am. I am a mirror, a reflection of God. From that point on in my heart, my meditation times, I systematically took all my conditions of any relationship I had judged, especially the one I just shared. I took conditions off myself. And when I did, I felt God's love tangibly for myself. And when I was able to do that, I was able to love unconditionally the person I had been away from in total silence for 8 years. I've continued to do this. My meditation is deeper. My silent times are easier. My prayer times, as I send out blessings and love, actually flow in a whole different way, because I don't give any thought anymore to problems like I used to, and bring judgment and all that into it. You know the saying, not my monkey, not my circus? Well, I get it now. I can actually just let things go that aren't on my plate, aren't given to me by Father to say, here's what I'd like you to do. Some things you just know happen. And you know what? It's not your monkey, not your circus. Don't get twisted in situations. Hold an unconditional loving intention for their good. Know that the love of God is unconditional, and it doesn't come with conditions of any kind. That freed me. Like I felt like I could fly. It's almost funny at times because I will hear and see something that I would have been triggered by, or have an opinion. Oh golly, to have an opinion or a reaction. And now I'm not triggered. The level of joy in this actually makes me feel a bit cheeky, like I have a secret that I want everyone to know about. I want to share some of the things that happen when we live in unconditional love. Living there allows you to remind yourself you don't have all the answers. Actually, you may not have any. And that's where the what if questions work the best. You'll be able to venture into new places, new thoughts, new subjects, and maybe you won't be hesitant anymore. When you live in unconditional love, you'll allow yourself to take conditions off having other people's approval on something. Because we've all been tied to a tribe, family, club, organization that has conditioned us to stay coloring between the lines, you'll realize that as we progress in these times, that being unlimited means no boundaries. Years ago, I wouldn't be studying the Merkaba or energy centers, for instance, let alone setting time to engage in those thoughts. Now, as I'm accused again of teaching New Age, I realize that it's not at all new. There's nothing really new under the sun. And this ancient age that we are sometimes exploring have some of the greatest relevance and is life-giving. You'll be more adventurous because you don't totally care about your reputation. That doesn't mean you don't have to be polite. That just means you really don't care what other people think. When I decided I cared more about what God thinks of me than man, I was free. On all personality tests, I'm actually labeled as an introvert. Introverts enjoy solitude, prefer situations one-on-one rather than the cocktail party. They don't care to be the center of attraction and actually rarely feel lonely. Isn't that neat? And it's odd because most of my acquaintances would say I'm an extrovert. Go figure. Your level of awareness when you love unconditionally will expand exponentially because you live in a safe place. There is no safer place than unconditional love. It lives in the divine Christ consciousness, and when you live there, you have absolutely no fear of making a mistake. Mistakes aren't sin, and mistakes are not failure. Mistakes are like missing the ball off the tee in a golf game. And there's an opportunity to put the ball back on and swing again, take another shot. What if you miss? Well, what if you don't? God never, his intention for you, he never takes his eyes off you, never forgets about you. You can set the ball up as many times as you need. We make a big deal of it, or we take a deep breath, repent, forgive ourselves. But really, he is there loving us unconditionally. Set it up again. You'll realize that if you have destructive thoughts or actions, it actually does affect the world around you, not just one person or not just yourself. When you love unconditionally, your thoughts expand because you realize you want to love unconditionally your world. You live from the point of view that God sees your life and the world you live in. And the fact that we are one brings us to understand that when we have a responsibility to live from the highest place, from our sacred self, so the frequency of that becomes a beacon for others and lifts them up. And that's truly what we want, because we don't have any conditions for it. We just believe that we can love people up and lift them up. Another lesson in unconditional love is that it's better to be kind than right. And that is so much more fun. It doesn't change what might be right, but it simply doesn't need to be proven to anybody. God's perspective is often different than either side of an argument. Have you ever heard that? There's 3 sides to every story. There's yours, there's mine, there's God's. And I decided I'd rather be known in the kingdom than the earth. Unconditional love brings you to a renewed appreciation for spending time in silence. It has actually driven me to more silence, and that beautiful bridal chamber in my heart becomes pure bliss. Silence and being with Father are not programmed, regimental process. It becomes a natural part of our life. I don't know if you guys ever went through this in your life, but we're told you need to spend an hour in prayer. You need to be reading. You need to be all the conditions, all the conditions. But when you actually live in unconditioned, no conditions, you're not programmed anymore. It becomes a natural part of your life, and what you had to program in, what you had to slot in, now just becomes life. And joy and bliss are actual states that we're created for. And it isn't about an external substance. It's not about the wine at the party. It's not about the gathering or the hoopla or the entertainment. It isn't something we look for. It's a state of being that belongs to us. It's not the party getting sloshed or a buzz on or whatever the words are. Laura C. this week was really interesting on Facebook. She did a short little message about the word entertainment. She said, entertainment means to detain from entering, to hold at the gate. Wow. What if entertainment is what holds us back from entering the kingdom within? God is looking at hearts. True resurrection realities worship is from the heart. It's from the heart, period, full stop. Worship is who we are, not what we do. Living in unconditional love will surrender more easily to God, knowing that the timing, process, and details of life are in the process called aligning, and that there's a higher intelligence in charge of details, and we can be at rest and grateful for the journey. When we're in that place of unconditional love, another thing that happens a lot, and that's synchronicities. They're not coincidences. They're serendipities. Is that a word even? Things that happened. Where you say, I was just thinking about, well, that shows up a lot. Judging is out of the question. Like, it's not about you shouldn't judge. You come to a place you've got no desire to. It's like you care enough not to care for something that's not in your care. That made a lot of sense, right? Caring not to care for something that's not in your care. Well, judgment is not the same as discernment. We discern with Holy Spirit as our guide, our teacher. Discernment brings us into new levels of life. Judging creates a stronghold that we allow ego to build if we're not careful. Judging is an issue that is not an outward thing, because whether you know it or not, we go through the judgment filter first when we do it, because judging is an accusation or a condemnation. And both of these things come within us and need to be addressed in the same way as we judge another. Living from unconditional love frees us from that. You'll understand that God's glory is his intention for you. And the root word in glory, doxa, is intent. We've learned that. You are his glory. From the time of creation, before the was, you are his glory. His intent. You are his intent manifest to this world. You are the scroll of his presence that's written here. We use the term glory as abstract term or an adjective, but glory cloud. But the term glory is really God in you, the hope. Living in unconditional love, you will experience heightened awareness about just about everything. Some days it doesn't have an off button. It's like you walk around in a dream, but you're awake and you have a feeling like a euphoria of bliss that you can't explain. And this heightened awareness is also your intuition. Your intuition kicks in at insane levels, and you will learn that you can trust your heart's intuitive nature. There are no conditions to his love. And the rest of the story is the reconciliation with my brother started last summer when I took the first step and we shared a lunch together. It's like, Houston, we have liftoff. We both received the greatest gift of a new beginning. We decided we would choose not to look back and begin a fresh opportunity to a renewed relationship. And it's been over half a year now, and life has shifted for us. We actually have the kind of conversations we had as teenagers where we could laugh easily. The greatest gift for me is that unconditional love is love without putting any conditions on it. I know, sounds redundant. It starts in our thinking, and I have to say, experiencing the fact of what seemed impossible is possible, and it is amazing. Life has changed. That's why this message for me is probably the most important. Words fail me, but the most beautiful life springs forth. And I'm trying to share tonight all the different places that it has changed, influenced, enhanced, made real. I have actually no thought for putting conditions on any part of love. I have no thought or purpose in judging another. Means no. There are no conditions to love, and wow, but what freedom. You know, the time we have together here on the river for the last few years, the subjects that we've studied and the discussions and sharing our lives all led to me personally to come to this place of self-discovery that may not have happened without you. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, because we really are the one song. We're the universe, the one verse song. We are heaven's one song together. So I appreciate tonight you letting me share. And what I want to say most of all is my thank you, how much I love you guys. So appreciate it. And I hope that in sharing this, I know that some of the stories are old stories. Imagine that, old stories. But we're in it together.